Ever heard of the People's Grocery? Let me paint a vivid picture. In the year 1892, amidst the racial tension of Memphis, three bold black entrepreneurs, Thomas Moss, Calvin McDowell, and William Henry Stewart, dared to defy the status quo. They opened a black-owned grocery store, a beacon of hope in a divided city, but their dream quickly turned into a nightmare. Falsely accused of planning an attack on white residents, they became the targets of a violent mob. Dragged from their cells, loaded onto a switch engine, and transported to a desolate railroad yard, they met a tragic end: the accusation. It all began with a simple dispute between black and white children, spiraling into a clash of communities. This false claim became the excuse for white grocers to strike at their competitors, the People's Grocery Company. Why? Because the store threatened the economic dominance of a white-owned grocery store that held a monopoly in the local black community. Ida B.
In March of 1892, 3 black grocery store owners in Memphis, Tennessee were murdered by a mob of white men. Lynchings like these were happening all over the American South, often without any subsequent legal investigation or consequences for the murderers. But this time, a young journalist and friend of the victims set out to expose the truth about these killings. Her reports would shock the nation and launch her career as an investigative journalist, civic leader, and civil rights advocate. Her name was Ida B. Wells. Ida Bell Wells was born into slavery in Holly Springs, Mississippi on July 16, 1862, several months before the Emancipation Proclamation released her and her family. After losing both parents and a brother to yellow fever at the age of 16, she supported her 5 remaining siblings by working as a school teacher in Memphis, Tennessee. During this time, she began working as a journalist. Writing under the pen name Iola, by the early 1890s, she gained a reputation as a clear voice against racial injustice and became co-owner and editor of the Memphis Free Speech and Headlight newspaper. She had no shortage of material. In the decades following the Civil War, Southern whites attempted to reassert their power by committing crimes against black people, including suppressing their votes, vandalizing their businesses, and even murdering them. After the murder of her friends, Wells launched an investigation into lynching. She analyzed specific cases through newspaper reports and police records, and interviewed people who had lost friends and family to lynch mobs. She risked her life to get this information. As a black person investigating racially motivated murders, she enraged many of the same Southern white men involved in lynchings. Her bravery paid off. Most whites had claimed and subsequently reported that lynchings were responses to criminal acts by black people. But that was not usually the case. Through her research, Wells showed that these murders were actually a deliberate, brutal tactic to control or punish black people who competed with whites. Her friends, for example, had been lynched when their grocery store became popular enough to divert business from a white competitor. Wells published her findings in 1892. In response, a white mob destroyed her newspaper presses. She was out of town when they struck, but they threatened to kill her if she ever returned to Memphis. So she traveled to New York, where that same year she republished her research in a pamphlet titled Southern Horrors: Lynch Law in All Its Phases. In 1895, after settling in Chicago, she built on Southern Horrors in a longer piece called The Red Record. Her careful documentation of the horrors of lynching and impassioned public speeches drew international attention. Wells used her newfound fame to amplify her message. She traveled to Europe, where she rallied European outrage against racial violence in the American South, in hopes that the U.S. government and public would follow their example. Back in the U.S., she didn't hesitate to confront powerful organizations, fighting the segregationist policies of the YMCA and leading a delegation to the White House to protest discriminatory workplace practices. She did all of this while disenfranchised herself. Women didn't win the right to vote until Wells was in her late 50s. And even then, the vote was primarily extended to white women only. Wells was a key player in the battle for voting inclusion, starting a black women's suffrage organization in Chicago. But in spite of her deep commitment to women's rights, she clashed with white leaders of the movement. During a march for women's suffrage in Washington, D.C., she ignored the organizers' attempt to placate Southern bigotry by placing black women in the back and marched up front alongside the white women. She also chafed with other civil rights leaders who saw her as a dangerous radical. She insisted on airing, in full detail, the atrocities taking place in the South, while others thought doing so would be counterproductive to negotiations with white politicians. Although she participated in the founding of the NAACP, she was soon sidelined from the organization. Wells' unwillingness to compromise any aspect of her vision of justice shined a light on the weak points of the various rights movements and ultimately made them stronger, but also made it difficult for her to find a place within them. She was ahead of her time, waging a tireless struggle for equality and justice, decades before many had even begun to imagine it possible.
All right, Shalom. We are the Hebrew Israelites from the Indianapolis branch of the Great Millstone. We're here to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Wakakwadash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and teaching us this 100% truth. Salutations to them and our fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also, salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth, that be likened to the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners, and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, we say Shalom.
Shalom.
All right, before we get into it, I want to just want to declare fair use, according to the Copyright Act of 1976, as stipulated by the terms therein of Section 107. All right, so without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into the opening scripture.
The book of Obadiah, verse 10, says, For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever.
Time again, we're going over the extreme violence that that's talking about Esau Edom, the one who's committing the violence, the so-called white man who is the wicked, according to Malachi 1 and 4. All right, and this is another installment of our camp series called For Thy Violence Against Thy Brother Jacob. And what we're going into is the series, the historical series of events. It seemed like it's a consistent playbook of the perpetual violence they've committed against Jake, just because that power lies within their hands. Okay, it says, shame shall cover thee. And that shame right now is all of their history being exposed. And you can see right now that the entire world is turning against Esau. Okay, they're fed up with this shenanigans. Like the scriptures say, nations are mad now. Okay, because of everything that they've done. All right, and it says, and they shall be cut off forever. So after this rulership of theirs is over, all over the world, they're going to go into captivity, twice as long and twice as hard, as the Israelites have been in. All right, and then after that, they're going to be rounded up and destroyed, according to Obadiah 1 and 18. All right. So, and one of the instances of that violence you see on the screen, it's called 3 Black Grocers Lynched in Memphis, Tennessee. This story is also better known as the People's Grocery. It took place in 1892, and for the most part, Esau didn't like competition, in in the neighborhood where these 3 grocers lived. All right, so basically they took them out, and there will be a copy, a link to this article in the description box. All right, so we'll get right into it. It says, on March 9th, 1892, a white mob stormed the Memphis jail, seized 3 black men held inside, and brutally lynched them without trial. And, I just want to say at this point, this is a recurring thing, that says they stormed the jail. No, this is the narrative that they give. Whoever was running the jail, open the jail up. And you can't have the same thing happening all the time. We know this about Esau. Once he's burnt on something, he adjusts to it. All right. Like, in history, we've talked about, there was one of the recessions where they wouldn't allow Jake to keep money in the bank. All right. So when the crash came in the early 1900s, all the Edomites, or so-called white people, lost their money, but Jake was thriving because he had his money in his hand. All right. So now they made that adjustment to have everyone keep their money in the bank. So we're just saying here, this is a recurring theme throughout history, where these mobs storm the jail. No, they were let in the jail. All right. Anybody got something? Okay.
I do.
Okay. back to the article. It says earlier that year, these same black men, Thomas Moss, Calvin McDowell, and William Henry Stewart, opened a People's Grocery Company in Memphis, Tennessee. Located across the street from a white-owned grocery store that had previously had a monopoly in the black community, the men's new business reduced the white store's profits. The venture also threatened the racial order by forcing white businessmen to compete economically with black businessmen. All right, so that's that's the thing, the order. You know, you can't compete with us. You know, what kind of crap is that? You know, everybody wants to make a living. All right, talking about the order. All right, it says, in the midst of this tension, a small fight between black and white children grew into a larger conflict between black and white men in the area. Afterward, some white men accused the People's Grocery of being a meeting place for black men planning an attack on white residents. This was largely a pretext to target the store for destruction, and the grocery owners and other black men gathered with arms to defend the store against the attack. It says, when the white mob attacked the store one evening soon after, shots were exchanged and 3 white men were wounded. Mr. Moss, Mr. McDowell, and Mr. Stewart were quickly arrested, and sensational newspaper reports published the next day fanned the flames of racial outrage. Okay, and in this piece right here, you know, they just arrested them.
Right.
You know, it doesn't say who fired the shots, but their target, like I said, the target was the grocery store because it had reduced their profits. You know, right? Go ahead.
It's the book of Amos, chapter 1, verse 11. It says, "Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because he did pursue his brother with the sword, and did cast off all pity, and his anger did tear perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever." So you bring this up is because, again, this is just a reoccurring thing, right? So because of the hatred that Esau, so-called white man, has for so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, in this case, this is the Judite men, so-called black men, just even, you know, the sheer competition, you know, or, you know, not even saying competition, because in many cases, you would go to their grocery stores and you couldn't, you know, they would say whites only, you know, a lot of times, or when you did go, they give you a hard time, you know, when you did go into their the establishments.
Yep.
So then now they create their own establishments, you know, for their people and for whoever else. And of course, you know, Jake can grow their own vegetables and fruits and certain things, and so of course they can charge better prices, you know, and still make money during the time, you know, and help the people out as well. But at the same time, Esau, through his perpetual hatred, you know, had to say, not only are we going to take out the grocery store, but we need to take them out as well. You know, so this is just a continuous thing. He says, but I will send a fire upon Teman, which shall devour the palaces of Basra. So of course, this is just the high places of Esau, you know. Soon and very soon, Yahweh Shai is going to destroy all the things in which they established, and they're going to receive it with the same vengeance and wrath in which they pushed out, like the scriptures say. You know, he that diggeth the pit, you know, shall fall therein. You know, whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. You know, and you will receive a recompense without, you know, mercy, because you've shown no mercy. So all these things will play its part soon and real soon. You got to go ahead.
Yep, this is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 43 and 44. It says, "The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low." And we know the strangers are referring to the heathens, and the top heathen that's above us as we speak is Esau, even the so-called white man. Verse 44, it says, "He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him." And here's the point. It says, "He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail." So that's why you see, you know, in history where There was points where Jake was thriving and businesses and what they had. And at some point in time, Esau, even so-called white man, would come over and completely ruin what Jake had going,
Mm-hmm.
and Esau would take it over.
Yep.
See? So it was never set up for Jake to be successful out here in this society, because ultimately this is Esau's kingdom that we're living in.
Yep. It says, you know, this place is not our rest. Micah 2:10. You know, the only time we're going to rest is when we go home, and that's back to our land. All right, the land that was promised from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob. All right, it's not going to be over here. This place is for our punishment. You want to grab that in Baruch 3:8.
This is the book of Baruch, chapter 3, verse 8. It says, "Behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for reproach and a curse, and and to be subject to payments, according to all the iniquities of our fathers, which departed from the Lord our power."
God, so yeah, we're in this place on a punishment, okay, for the transgressions of our forefathers, which you know we are too, as it pertains to the third and fourth generation. You know, we are those forefathers, okay, in a sense. But you know, hey, we're here serving out this punishment according to the curses, Deuteronomy 28 and 68. All right, like I said, we were scattered too, so we're all over the place, and no matter where you go, Jake is going to be going through this. You know, that's why you know anybody. I just referred to the movie Friday. You know, anybody across the country, you know, Jake's could identify with that movie because it's the same thing going on in everybody's neighborhood, the same setup. All right, so we're definitely under those curses. All right, so yeah, we always gonna be the tail here until it's time for the Lord to come back and deliver us, which you know we hope is this year the way things are shaping up. You know, as it was declared, you know, by Apostle Tahar, you know, the 2025 is the hopeful year of our deliverance, talking about the elect of Israel and the destruction and judgment of Esau, Edom. All right. Okay. Back to the article. It says, when the white mob attacked the store one evening soon after, shots were exchanged and 3 white men were wounded. Mr. Moss, Mr. McDowell, and Mr. Stewart were quickly arrested, and sensational newspaper reports published the next day fanned the flames of racial outrage. The lynching came soon after. In his last words before his death, Thomas Moss reportedly declared, "Tell my people to go west. There is no justice for them here." And as I was just saying, you know, there's not going to be any justice anywhere in the United States. You know, we're subject to payments. This is our captivity, you know, until we go home. So, you know, pretty much, you know, it probably would have been nicer on the front end, but eventually it would have got worse because we're still on punishment. All right. It goes on. It says, Ida B. Wells, a 29-year-old black school teacher and journalist living in Memphis, was a friend of the 3 murdered men and was deeply impacted by their deaths. She published an editorial echoing Mr. Moss's last words and urging local black residents to save our money and leave town, which will neither protect our lives and property nor give us a fair trial in the courts, but take us out and murder us in cold blood when accused by white persons. More than 6,000 African Americans heeded her call and left Memphis soon after. So yeah, they eventually did leave, but to go where? you know, we're still on punishment. Same thing's going to happen, and we know this. You know, as we did some earlier videos that map talking about the black massacres. You know, those were all over the United States, more predominantly in the South. You know, from this time period, from like 1865 up until as most recently with the shooting in Buffalo, New York. You know, the mass shooting, just go in and start taking Jake out. All right.
Yep. And the thing is like she made that statement, but then now you have a lot of the same things going on.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have the men of the Lord that the Yahweh Shai has risen up. and in that place, they're telling you, this is the way, right? She's giving them, oh, go west, right? Now the men of the Lord are saying, if you could grab that for me, Baba Shah, bread of affliction, though thy teachers not be in the corner anymore.
This is Isaiah chapter 30 and verse 20. It says, and though the Lord give you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, yet shall not thy teachers be removed into a corner anymore, but thine eyes shall see thy teachers, and thine eyes shall hear a word behind thee saying, this is the way, walk ye in it, when you turn to the right hand and when you turn to the left.
Right. So now we have, through all the affliction, the things that are continuously happening, our people have constantly gone out. We're going to march. We're going to protest. Right. That's been like the main thing that's going on. And of course, we know that that Edom, starting with the Amalekites, the head tribe, has been involved in all the marches from the BLMs to the
NAACP.
NAACP, and now you have in these last days, the men of the Lord has risen up and has told you what you need to do. We need to repent and turn back to Yahweh Bashmi Shah to the best of your ability. Rehearse the righteous acts. You're not going to get it perfectly, but this is all through the spirit of Yahweh Bashmi Shah with the trust that Yahweh Shah is going to make these changes swiftly and speedily. So for those that come across this video, the only thing that we can do is rely on Yahweh Bashim Shai and the scriptures. Right? And then of course the men in which he sent that teach this truth sincerely. Start with the men of GMS. Go ahead.
All right. So back to the article, this last paragraph. It says, Mrs. Wells was later forced to leave Memphis for Chicago due to threats on her own life, but she would devote her entire life to documenting and challenging the injustice of lynching through research, writing, speaking, and activism. No one was ever punished for the lynchings deaths of Thomas Moss, Calvin McDowell, and William Henry Stewart. They are among at least 20 African American victims of racial terror lynching killed in Shelby County, Tennessee between 1877 and 1950, which, wasn't that long ago.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, because between that time you had the Red Summer.
Yes. Yes.
1919.
Yep.
But Yahweh, he hasn't forgot. Yahweh Shai has not forgot. There's the scriptures talk about even them that pierced him thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
Was going to receive their recompense. That much the same for things that just happened. These are recent. We can say, yeah, these are recent. Recent times.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This is Zechariah 11 and 5. It says, whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty, and they that sell them say, blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. So here it is, nobody, the reason why I brought up the scripture, because nobody was guilty or indicted, for the lynching of those 3 Jake men. You see, so ultimately, when it comes to Jake, Esau, even the so-called white men, kill Jake and do things to Jake, and they don't see nothing wrong with it, man. They don't hold themselves guilty. It says, and they that seldom say, blessed be the Lord, for I am rich. So Esau thinks just because he got this wealth and things of that nature that the Lord is with him. It says, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. Meaning what? There's ultimately those so-called leaders amongst Jake, who don't even care about their own people.
Well, you can see that today in the Congress. I was reading somewhere that the Congressional Black Caucus is a group of people that spearhead not repaying reparations for slavery over here, even though the scriptures, tell us we're not going to get it anyway. But who's in the forefront of that? It's Jake. All right. Got something else?
Yep.
Okay.
This is the book of Micah, chapter 2, verse 1. It says, woe unto them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it. because it's in the power of their hands.
Mm-hmm.
And so the main point, as far as they were pretty much wanting to take them out because it was a competition and it was an economic battle
Mm-hmm.
in which they, instead of making other agreements and working out other things, their thing was to pretty much devise a way to get them out of
Mm-hmm.
that position. And it started, of course, they found the perfect case, which was kids fighting, which then became more infighting, and then that was their way to go. We can target. All
Mm-hmm.
right, make an accusation, place the blame, and then we can target. Nothing different. Same thing that's going to happen, in these last times when it comes to the men of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to find a good reason. They're trying to build it up. Find a reason, place the blame, and then they got their media, which is their medium that they use
Mm-hmm.
to blast it all over the
Mm-hmm.
place, and then to create, that the propaganda to then go out, the what they say, order Alkeo,
Mm-hmm.
right? Problem, reaction,
Solution. Yep.
Okay, so this is how they move, and this is the thing in which, spiritually through the faith of Yahweh Shema Shah, we're preparing ourselves for.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's the thing. Like I said, the same pattern. You know, the the media and the U.S. Government, and that's any faction thereof, which includes law enforcement. They are always in cohorts with the civilians that cause a problem, because most of them are part of that anyway. Okay, you look back at those old pictures and books like Without Sanctuary, where they did the the photographical history of all the lynchings and mutilations of Jake. Okay, there's a bunch of people out there. All of them, judges, lawyers, over doctors, law enforcement, along with the regular civilians. All right. This is the book of Exodus, chapter 23, verses 1 and 2. Going back to your point, Barah, it says, "Thou shalt not raise a false report. Put not thine hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness." And like I said, that store was targeted because it was reducing their profits. Okay, and the false report was saying that was a meeting place for black men to come against white people. All right, just make stuff up so you can justify your wickedness. Okay, and that's what you did. When it calls you an unrighteous witness, you know, the multitude of so-called white men agreed with that sentiment of that was a meeting place when they just wanted to hey, have a business of their own, because like you said earlier, going into those stores, spending our money, the disrespect, all types of adversity, watching you think you're gonna steal or most likely make up something that you stole something, get you put in jail. All right. And it says, verse 2, "Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to arrest judgment." So that's also what they did. They got a mob together, okay, to go lynch these men, okay, accuse them of, being at the center, pretty much their store being at the center of the conflict that was going on, when it was really that they didn't like the competition. Talking about it violated the order. That you can compete with you could not compete with the so-called white man. What kind of crap is that? They just always trying to make you less than what you are. All right, but hey, recompense is gonna come. That's for sure. This is Colossians chapter 3, verse 25. And it reads, "But he that doeth wrong shall receive for the wrong which he have done, and there is no respect of persons." Okay, so we know that Yahweh Bashem Yahushai has the option of dealing with a nation or an individual, according to Job 34 and 29. But according to the scriptures, he's going to deal with the nation of Edom, all right, and destroy them in the end, reserving them until the day of wrath. Okay, he's going to destroy them, according to Obadiah 1:18. All right.
This is Psalms chapter 73, verse 5. It says, "They are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men." You see, so Esau, even the so-called white man, can commit all this murder and all this wickedness, and ultimately, hey, he's not receiving the punishment for it. But we understand that. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Shai is preserving this individual for the ultimate destruction as well as servitude in the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
See, so it might seem like they got away with lynching those three Jake grocers back then, but the Lord, He remembers all that. Scriptures talk about how the Lord has to remember all their iniquities, man. In verse 6, it says, "Therefore pride compasseth them about as a chain." So also because they're not in trouble with other men, because they don't receive certain judgments, because say it was a Jake that went on a killing spree and just killed a bunch of Edomites. All right, that Jake would immediately be put to death, right? But here it is, Esau exacts all this violence, against Jake, and nothing happens, man.
Yeah.
So that's why, like it says, therefore, so because they're not in trouble as other men, right? Therefore, pride compasses them about as a chain. So their pride is going to get worse and worse and worse,
Mm-hmm.
because they feel as if they can get away with doing certain things, man.
Oh.
All right, but the Lord has them in a trick bag. It says, "Violence covereth them as a garment." So we understand that the pride and the wickedness and the violence that this devil, has, man, is going to continue to increase in these last days, because they feel as if they're getting away, right? Which is fueling them to do more wickedness. But when all is said and done, they're not getting away.
Precept. Yeah, this is just to back up your point. This is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 8, verse 11, and it reads, "Because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil." And just to your point, because they're not receiving punishment right now, they continue to increase in their wickedness, all right? Non-stop to this very day. All right. Verse 12 says, "Though a sinner do evil 100 times and his days be prolonged, yet surely I know that it shall be well with them that fear Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, which fear before him." Verse 13, "But it shall not be well with the wicked, neither shall he prolong his days, which are as a shadow, because he feareth not before Yahweh Bashim Yahushai." So yeah, eventually, that recompense is going to catch up to you, and yours, is going to be the harshest, because the Lord is not going to have mercy on you, none whatsoever. All right, once that judgment starts, after this kingdom fall down, America, aka Babylon, and Yahweh Shai is back, delivers his people, establishes that new covenant, it's on. You gonna be this it's not gonna be good for you, Esau. It's not gonna be good, and that's gonna be every day, except for the Sabbath. All right, and the high holy days. That's gonna be every day. We're gonna let you have it, and then when your time is up, your time is up. You're gonna be exterminated, point blank, period. All right. All right, so with that, we hope this lesson was edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. Once again, going to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well in teaching us this 100% truth. Salutations to them and our fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also, salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth. They be like it to the speckled bird. To you, we say Shalom.
Shalom.
Kwam Yasharala.
Kwame Sharala.
Abab Abal.
Abba, Abba.
We got next.